if you're Phoenix now post Ayton, you got to think about the rest of your offseason and how you're going to improve this roster. And it gets harder because you're hung up in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. Uh, let's start there with Kevin Durant. A lot of people were under, and I made jokes about this on Twitter, they were under the guise that this DeAndre Ayton contract offer sheet at the time ruined, wrecked, imploded the Suns' chances of acquiring Kevin Durant. While I made jokes about it, I did write about it, and I thought a little bit more about it. I really don't think it does. I think you can make a really compelling case that they're still the favorites to land Kevin Durant if he gets traded. And there are a few things that stand out there. One, and this absolutely matters, even though Kevin Durant has 4 years left on his deal. The Suns are not only one of 2 teams that have been named, along with Miami, as Kevin Durant's preferred destinations, but they're his favorite spot. I believe it was Woj who had mentioned that. That matters. Like, that is a big deal here because teams just aren't going to give up the boat for Kevin Durant if he doesn't want to play for them. Like, they're just not going to, nor should they do that. I think in most cases you can talk yourself into it, maybe in certain situations, but it's prided on the Nets sort of accepting a package that they're probably not going to be smitten with. The other thing here is, though, DeAndre Ayton was never mission critical to the return necessarily that Brooklyn was getting. They already re-signed Nicholas Claxton. They really like Daron Sharp there. They also have Ben Simmons. If he's healthy, they plan on being competitive, maybe rebuilding around him, or at least maximizing him. You're not doing that with another big who doesn't space the floor. And I'm not saying you can't have bigs like that on the roster. Nicholas Claxton and Daron Sharp do not space the floor. That being said, you're not going to max out someone who has such overlap with Ben Simmons. That's a worse, like, you thought Embiid and Simmons were strained at time on offense. Embiid at least stretched the defense beyond the 3-point line capably, consistently, continuously. DeAndre Ayton does not do that. And so it never seemed like the Nets were really interested in Ayton. Where Ayton was valuable in the Kevin Durant trade talks was, can you suss out 3rd, 4th teams, 5th teams, 6th teams, and set up this huge deal where you're sending Ayton to a squad that is in turn sending out assets to Brooklyn, in addition to the other assets that Phoenix is giving Brooklyn. You also, while base year compensation would have complicated the matter, the fact that DeAndre Ayton counted as an outgoing salary at all, it made a couple things more feasible. One, you could take back other money if Brooklyn really wanted to get off of Joe Harris. There were just easier pathways to do it. Not for Ayton straight up. I'm just saying building those packages were easier. More importantly, there were scenarios in which you didn't completely decimate your non-Booker, non-CP3 core to get Kevin Durant. Would Ayton, depending on what a team gave up for him and send it to Brooklyn, could Ayton and then Jay Crowder and Cam Johnson, plus your entire draft future, could that have gotten the deal done with the Nets? Like, could you have spared Mikal Bridges? The prevailing sentiment is probably no. That's fair. You might have been able to spare Cam Johnson then. That matters. Or maybe it's just more, or Jay Crowder, who I think still really matters to Phoenix, even though his season ended on kind of a lower note. It might have even just been as simple of, oh, the Nets are then more willing to take a Landry Shamet or a Dario Saric as the matching salary, or Cameron Payne as part of the matching salary, rather than targeting a Jay Crowder or Cam Johnson who have way more utility to the Suns. That's where losing Ayton hurts. But Phoenix's best offer, this is their best. I'm not saying this is what Kevin Durant will go for. I'm not saying Phoenix should actually offer all of this. I would argue it takes most of this to get Kevin Durant, but you have Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder. That gets you to the money you need to send out. I think it's like 35.2 plus million. It's a little bit over 35.2 million you need to send out. That gets you there. And then your entire draft. That is a 2023 pick, a 2025 pick, a 2027 pick, and a 2029 pick. And then you give Brooklyn swap rights in 2024, 2026, 2028. I have to we would need to look at Brooklyn's own pick commitments because they don't own all these, they don't control most of their draft moving forward. So like, okay, swap rights, and then you owe your 24 pick to Houston. How much does it actually matter? You could stagger it then. So maybe the Suns are sending you a pick in these years, 24, 26, when you know you don't have draft picks. And so maybe you're preferring the 24, 26, and 28 picks from Phoenix, and then getting swaps in 2025, 2027, and 2029, and 2023. It's less pick equity, but it lines up with years then where you actually have all your first round picks. So they could structure it that way. That is absolutely a monster offer if you're Phoenix. And I do think there are teams that can make better offers if they wanted to. I don't know which teams are going to be emboldened to do that. The Heat are the only other squad that we know that's been named as a preferred destination for Kevin Durant. Their best offer of a similar vein is they have Tyler Hero, and then you have to give up Kyle Lowry as matching salary here. No one's talking about that. Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, and then all these other like lower end salaries, that doesn't get you there. So unless you're sussing out other teams, or Brooklyn is willing to do this, where Udonis Haslem is getting signed and traded as this salary, you need to give him Kyle Lowry in a Kevin Durant deal. Is Brooklyn higher on Kyle Lowry? Is there a team that would want to take Kyle Lowry? How annoyed is he going to be that he just went to Miami? You could do permutations where the Nets are trading Ben Simmons and Kevin Durant, and then they can get Bam Adebayo. I don't know if Miami's going to want to do that. That really shrinks their title window. That is just like not as impressive, even when you're going to include their draft. And they can trade functionally 23, 27, and 29 picks. If they can broker with Oklahoma City, amend the protection so that their obligation to them in 2025 is just conveyed. They can make it unprotected. Maybe OKC is perfectly fine with that and doesn't really need anything, or at least minimal compensation to facilitate the deal. That's just not that, and swaps is just, it's not impressive. And it gets a little bit more difficult because we just went through it. If you're the Nets, like the swaps in 24 and 26 and 28 is fine, but 24 and 26 aren't going to mean as much to you because you don't actually control your own first round pick. So unless you're going to get another first round pick from a different team for that year, then yeah, okay, like maybe you could start looking at that. They do have, which I think really helps this, they have Philly's pick in, didn't they defer Philly's pick this year to 2024? 27. So Philly's 2027 first round pick. That does make things a little bit more palatable with that structure. The point is that I just feel like even with Nikola Jovic, Tyler Hero, and Kyle Lowry, plus your entire draft, I'm higher on Phoenix's offer. So of the two teams that are most involved in this, the Suns clearly have the best offer to me, the best top dollar offer. It doesn't mean that, it's the best offer all around, but versus Miami, no matter how you're going to structure it, Phoenix beats them out. And so now we get into, I think the Raptors are probably the third most prominent team in this, just because Masai Ujiri is always lurking, and reporting has suggested that they're sort of on the fringes of this. If Kevin Durant's willing to go there, do you include Scotty Barnes? My guess is probably not, just because the Raptors would be worried that Kevin Durant even changes his mind. He already changed his mind about Brooklyn, changed his mind about Golden State. From there, your best package becomes, and I'm just going to phrase this as your entire draft. And when I mean that, it's teams are trading 4 firsts and 3 swaps, 4 swaps and 3 firsts, whatever. They structure it in the years that Brooklyn would want it, but you're trading first round equity through 2029. It becomes Pascal Siakam and then draft picks. I think that's a better package than what the Suns would be offering with Mikal Bridges, their entire draft, Jay Crowder and Cam Johnson. If the Nets actually want to compete right away, Pascal Siakam is 28. That matters, but he's an entrenched All-NBA player who you can hold on to long-term. You're getting all non-stars from Phoenix. If you're getting comparable draft equity from Toronto in addition to Siakam, I think that offer beats it out. However, the appeal for Toronto is probably pairing Durant with Siakam and then Barnes. You could make deals then with Fred VanVleet. I don't know that Brooklyn's going to have a ton of interest in him, especially until the Kyrie Irving stuff is resolved. He is still on the team, by the way. Now, all of a sudden, you're looking at Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, maybe Toronto's willing to throw in Precious Achiuwa, and then their entire draft. I've gone back and forth, and I had a discussion with someone about this on Twitter. I don't know which package I would prefer in that instance. I'd probably trust shorting. I like the players coming out of Toronto more in the aggregate. I think Mikal Bridges would be the best player of anyone being moved. But OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr. in the aggregate, to me, are better than Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson, and Mikal Bridges in the aggregate, even though Mikal Bridges is the best of those 5 players. That's just where I'm at. I'd prefer to short Phoenix's draft future, though, just because Kevin Durant's entering his age 34 season. Chris Paul's entering his age 37 season, I think it is. So those two are going to age out at some point. You still have Devin Booker and now DeAndre Ayton, who are super young, but there's a little bit more combustibility there. The Raptors have also shown the ability to be resourceful in the draft and the way that they acquire players. I think the Suns front office for a lot of points has been underrated, but as long as Robert Sarver is in control of that organization, I also think they're more of a wild card than Toronto. So if I'm the Nets, I'd probably prefer Phoenix's offer in that case. This is where things get weird, though. Beyond that, what is the market for Kevin Durant? I'm even assuming that Toronto, without knowing Durant wants to be there, will give up its entire draft plus OG and Gary Trent Jr. I don't actually know that they would. I think their offer, along with other teams, are going to be reflective of whether Kevin Durant wants to go there. And I'm wondering if this move with the Suns, what it really does, because it weakens their Kevin Durant offer ever so slightly, does it sort of convince him to open up his list of destinations? Can you talk yourself into a title window alongside Zion in New Orleans? Do the Cleveland Cavaliers, are they attractive at all? And do they have enough draft assets to cobble together a viable offer without including Darius Garland or Evan Mobley? And so you're just looking at all the picks, Isaac Okoro, Larry Marketing becomes pivotal, matching salary there. Jared Allen should be on the table if the Nets want him back, or maybe you're sussing out a third team. Akbaji, of course, who they just drafted, the 14th overall pick. You're including just everything. Is a Colin Sexton sign and trade a part of that? Who knows? Brooklyn is really, it's tough with the hard cap. Another reason why they were probably never going to, wind up trading for Ayton, by the way, just because the hard cap is so difficult to work. Does that situation, assuming it works, even appeal to Kevin Durant? Are the Nets so committed to winning now that the Bucks said, hey, we will give you Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, and I think they can trade a 2029 first and a 2028 swap? I will double check that. These teams are trading out picks so far in the future, it gets hard to keep track of. Yeah, they could give you a 28 swap, a 29 first round pick, and Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, who I know is injured. Are you so committed to winning now that you would do that deal? If you're Brooklyn, I doubt it. And does Kevin Durant want to play with Giannis where he won't be the best player, the clear best player on the team? I would also doubt it. Can Washington build something around Denny Avdia, Johnny Davis, filler, or Kristaps Porzingis, however you want to frame it, and then every first round pick and first round swap that they can? And then Durant teams up with Bradley Beal, goes to Washington. We know that appealed to him in the past. I don't know. The Golden State Warriors are apparently a real threat, according to ESPN Brian Windhorst. How much draft equity do they have to attach to Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and James Wiseman versus how much draft equity are they willing to attach to some combination of those players? I think you might be able to keep Jordan Poole just because would Brooklyn want to pay him long term? At the same time, I think you would need to be more invested in keeping Kuminga. That's not happening. Or perhaps more likely Moses Moody, just because you need more wings in that scenario. Again, how much draft equity are you willing to trade out? And it also, by the way, does absolutely matter how much all of those younger players intrigue Brooklyn, because the Warriors have already traded their first round pick to Memphis. It's top 4 protected. And so they'd be looking at, they could do a 23 swap, a 25 swap, a 26 first, and then a 28 first. So they can only trade 2 physical first round picks, conditional first round picks. That's like, are they willing to do that? Are they willing to go 26 and 28 first round picks to Brooklyn? How many swaps need to be included in that? They would be a team that I think can talk themselves into it just because they won the championship. Durant's been there, done that. Is he willing to come back though and again be sort of Steph's sidekick, or have to deal with that discourse again where people are wondering whether he is Steph's sidekick? I have no idea. Could Memphis get involved? Are they willing to include Jaren Jackson Jr.? If not, does Desmond Bane, Zaire Williams, and a shit ton of draft equity stack up with what Phoenix is offering that we just went over, or even Miami and Toronto's best offers? Right now, the scope of KD's market isn't nearly large enough to deem these sweepstakes wide open. And assuming Sarver doesn't whine about paying KD, Ayton, CP3, and Booker at the same time, which would be the end result of this Ayton contract, the Suns might actually still have the best available package to the Nets. But their viability in this equation has always been largely predicated on Durant wanting them and basically no one else. And so if that Ayton contract does anything, it increases the likelihood that Phoenix can't cobble together the best trade proposal for Kevin Durant, even if ever so slightly, and that KD, by extension, will be convinced, perhaps forced, to broaden the currently narrow market he has created for himself. At this moment, though, I would still say the Suns, if Kevin Durant is going to be traded, they should be the favorites to land Kevin Durant still. I don't think the DeAndre Ayton contract changes that. This is all to say the Nets could still be comfortable keeping Kevin Durant. And in that case,